All right, what's going on there, fellas? As promised, I am not giving up on the dragging the camera out into the garage, hanging out with the mic, because everybody did enjoy that first one. Max, who doesn't even watch half my videos, told me he enjoyed that one. So I figured there's a lot of potential there. If I can get the skill down of talking to the camera between sets, but not having it detract from my workout quality, because as we established, that is the most important thing to me. Training's been going really well. Probably been overworking myself a little bit. I was so giddy to get back into doing volume after peaking out for that 880 deadlift that I've kind of been overdoing it, like staying in the gym for like a good 3 hours and probably reaching past the point of productive levels of fatigue. Plus, with doing a bit more in-person work nowadays, I'm kind of working 7 days a week. So I probably should figure out a schedule that involves having like one day where I'm not kind of on the hook for updating spreadsheets in anytime I have spare time and doing coaching messaging. Just as like a bit of a decompression, because I think that whole like sympathetic, parasympathetic, which for those unfamiliar is just kind of fight or flight or like rest and digest, those kind of hormonal pathways. I think that stuff does have pretty significant bearings on your ability to recover from training. If you're in this kind of fight or flight state all the time and you never let yourself go down to a parasympathetic state, your recovery, your sleep is noticeably worse. And that is kind of part of that greater equation of how can I recover at a better overall rate, my nutrition, my sleep, my food, and my stress management, so I can do more productive training and I can benefit more from the training I'm already doing. So that's probably something I'll have to navigate because getting stronger is very important to me. All right, phone is telling me it's got 1% power. I think it is lying to me. I tried to order that slightly less old used iPhone, but the wonderful shippers just never sent it to me. So we will have to sort that one out for kind of easier filming and editing so I can get these videos out a little bit more regularly for you guys. But we're gonna see if I have to drag an extension cord out here or something. Already did my basic warm-ups. I did wind bike. I did my Pavlov presses. Those were pretty boring last week, so I didn't include those. Just gradually chipping away, getting stronger and stronger in that kind of anti-rotational oblique work. Then just some basic like upper body arm swings, thoracic spine mobility, overhead bar stretch, hung from a bar for a second. Again, took me just a couple of minutes. Now we're going to kind of bounce back and forth between lat pull downs and some warm-up sets of the overhead press to kind of get that whole shoulder girdle moving. All right, another round of lat pull downs done over there, just a high rep set of 15, kind of antagonistic superset thing going on. Just get that whole shoulder girdle nice and warm and warm up the lats so I can connect with them a little bit better, because when we're trying to strict press maximal weights, really packing into the lats at the bottom like you're at the bottom of a lat pull down is very kind of similar to a bench press. I find quite helpful, and including that antagonistic work in a warm-up tends to help my kind of proprioceptive ability to cue those things when it comes time to press. All right, one thing you may notice is today I am not getting my head through until the last rep. This is pretty controversial in the realm of overhead pressing, because a lot of people that will lead to these really inflated rep PRs that doesn't translate to their 1RM the way their rep max calculator or their historical rep PRs kind of did, because they will be back here and then they'll pump reps out in front of them in a position they couldn't hold even if they wanted to. And they'll hit these big inflated rep PRs and be like, what gives? It didn't carry over. It's much the same as never pausing at the bottom of your overhead presses. Some people it works just fine, but for the most part, the first rep has to start dead from the bottom. So we should do most of our reps that way if we want maximal carryover. Is there a time and a place for touch and go to get us more volume? Sure. But you will see some very good especially strict overhead pressers or stricter overhead pressers that stay looking up at the weight till the final rep. Big Z and Shane German being common examples off the top of my head. But both of them have a tremendous amount of confidence in their ability that when the time comes, their ability to then stand, transfer that weight into their upper back, get their head through. That's not where they fail, right? A lot of guys will tell themselves that's not where they fail, and then you see them do a heavy overhead press or a heavy overhead event, and that is exactly where they fail. Hopefully, knock on wood, I'm not being delusional here. That has not historically been my problem. So for now, I can kind of stay packed into this position to put in a little bit more volume, as I've always had a pretty easy time then standing up and through, transferring into the upper back. I have respectable overhead mobility, not great, but respectable. And I've done a lot to keep my upper back strong to be able to transfer into that position. I think partially my use of behind the neck work also preserves that ability to stand up and through to where, Shane German and I guess Big Z being good examples of this, both of them frequent users of behind the neck work. Big Z in the Smith machine, Shane German standing. But you could say, oh, you're not getting your head through every rep. Well, they're doing reps with nothing but their head through later that same workout. So again, you can look at things in isolation and say they're a mistake, but maybe people have something in their training program that fills in that gap. You can ask yourself that. Am I just kind of inflating my ego with these pump out reps, or is this a deliberate thing that I think is going to yield me a better result at the end? Kind of depends. I do recommend most people train head through every rep for a good while to kind of establish that pattern, that ability to stand through before they begin leaving the head back. If at all, blanket statement, I just get your head through every rep. Do as I say, not as I do, I guess, right? All right, gradually with time, hopefully starting and stopping the camera, a little bit of talking, will impact my kind of flow of training less and less. And that's why, you want to vary it so you don't have to rely on always being in the same spot, in the same gym, in the same rack to perform well. You should have some ability to perform and replicate performances in varied spaces. But a lot of the time, being in that familiar environment, you can kind of get into this state of rinse and repeat where it's like press, pull down, start my timer, write it in my notebook, drink some water, visualize. Press, pull down, start my timer, write it in my notebook, drink a little sip, a little water, hydrate, visualize. Repeat, repeat, repeat till we're done with this either superset or we're dropping out the pull downs next and just continuing with these, or just be like press, timer, write it down, drink, press, timer, write it down, drink. And I think the inclusion of visualization as part of that allows for not just forward progression in just strength, but forward progression in technique, which we're always looking for. Getting better and better at having like pressing start and go on the timer and these little chit chats we have throwing off that rotation less and less. So hopefully I'll get this sorted out for us. Also, John Jones is the duck. I do think the head staying back looks shittier, but my intuition is telling me based on past overhead training that with my current goals being a big strict press, this is the way to go. Hopefully I am not wrong. Head was through a little early there. I'm in a pretty good mood today. Had a sick leg day yesterday. Struggling to walk today. Fucking stoked to get back into just some difficult nuts and bolts leg days. Bunch of squatting, going heavy on every leg machine. Let me get that real quick. But that's got me in a good mood. Max's training is going real good. If you guys follow him on Instagram, he just hit an 805 squat. We're going to be signing up for a meet here soon, so should be pretty cool there. Kirsten's client just hit her first 200-pound bench press, so that's pretty cool. Really, really stoked with Kirsten's development as a coach. I always kind of knew that Kirsten, whatever she does for work, she takes really seriously, and tends to like spend all of her free time learning about whatever it is she does. So I'm glad that it's something that's like a little bit more fun to mentally grapple with than her old job. Really stoked with her development as a coach, and her athletes are doing really well, kind of just gradually building a small client base to gain experience, leaning into pushing her own training harder and harder, because that's a big part of how I learned. And so if I am mentoring someone, I can't really go about teaching them without them doing the same thing I did, which is you are your own experimentation. Of course, what works for you doesn't necessarily work for everyone, and that's why you have that core group of other clients, and you see what are universals and what are unique for you. What's unique for this athlete? Come up with theories, test theories, see what works more often, see what sub-demographics things work more often. I don't know, super stoked. I had a hunch she would get pretty good at it pretty quick, but kind of exceeding my expectations in her local clients here, all just kind of regularly PRing. I'm quite stoked. All right, I'm gonna press this way, see if it gives you guys any different angle of what I'm currently doing with my tech. Ooh, I'm feeling that first shoulder day from this week big time. Holy fuck. All right, more bullshit rambling for me. One thing I talk about a lot on the channel is I think it's really interesting with a bigger roster of clients like I have, you can see kind of commonalities in people that make good progression and people that don't. Of course, blah, blah, blah. Genetics is certainly part of that, but you can see worldviews, beliefs, mindsets, and a lot of the things I kind of push myself into believing aren't because necessarily I think they're the most likely thing to be true. I'm kind of a pragmatist when it comes to my beliefs. It's what's going to be functionally useful. So I think it's better to overestimate my genetics and push as hard as I can, and any time I fall short, it must be due to my own effort. Being wrong in that way, at least at the end, I can say, all right, I probably misassessed my potential, but I managed to live up to it. Seems a lot less scary to me than misassessing in the other direction and failing to even live up to what I was capable of, right? So I'd rather just choose to believe, right? The most realistic thing would be somewhere in between and try to get a real feel for specifically, I'll just assume it's the best to ever live until proven otherwise. And it's interesting to see kind of my clients. One guy, local guy here, really like the kid, Nathan, he just hit his first 3-plate bench. This is something he's been working really hard towards. And Nathan's one of the most neurotic people. He watches these. I'm sure he's not gonna be offended. He just scores unbelievably high on neuroticism. And I think that's a real commonality in people that struggle to see consistent progression with time, is like scoring really high on traits of neuroticism. I myself definitely fall into that, where I'm like, every milliliter of water needs to be measured. Every single gram of food needs to be measured. Like, I think a lot of like living in a box and extreme variable control, and living a life a lot of people I think wouldn't find very enjoyable at all, I enjoy a lot because it potentiates good training. But I think sometimes I take that too far and think these things matter more than they do. And I notice that most of my athletes that make the most consistent progression with time are people that like pushing themselves hard for the sake of pushing themselves and score really low on neuroticism. So trying to push myself towards being that, trying to push Nathan towards reducing those traits of neuroticism, right? Because we can see that our body is so malleable that like 5 years from now, you could bench twice as much. I don't know, if you're already strong, no. But if you're weak, it's hard to imagine 5 years from now, your 135-pound bench could easily be doubled in 5 years, right? You're twice as strong. You're a fundamentally physically different person. You could have cardio. You could be more muscular. You could weigh more. You could weigh less. We're able to be this malleable physically, and our brain is equally, if not more so malleable, right? Neuroplasticity decreases with time, but it's still pretty astounding that people can like rewire their brain to do functions with different parts of their brain. You can work towards being functionally someone that can get stronger. I can work towards being someone that's less neurotic. You can work towards being someone that likes pushing themselves. It takes time. It's not just, one day I thought about it this way and then it clicked, but you can make a deliberate effort to be the person that's gonna make good progression. And for Nathan, a lot of that was just trying to quell that natural neuroticism, because I think that's one of the toughest things on your gains. So one thing that can be real good when we're doing an exercise multiple days a week to kind of keep things varied and have something else to progress once we're not able to add performance every single session is to have close variations, right? Easy example being like the lat pull down. We could have one day where we really hook our feet under the pads, put our feet out in front of us, and we can really pivot it into like an incline pull where we can kind of recruit our back musculature more holistically, move some more weight. It's slightly more dynamic in nature, which I don't think is a problem. I think it can just help to even out or sync up the resistance curve to your muscles, kind of internal resistance curve, and can be really good. But then maybe on a second day, we have a lighter day where either we don't use the leg support if we're using a weight where that's possible, or we hook our thighs underneath, but put our feet under us or behind us. And this is gonna keep us a lot more vertical. It's a good close variation to have something else to progress. Maybe you have one day regular, one day alternate grip, one day regular, one day behind the neck to try to preserve some overhead mobility. There's good ways we can kind of check that same box of vertical pulling and make week to week progression, but have a little bit of fun variability is finding different close variations and writing in your notes which one you're doing that day. With like tricep press downs, you can do the kind that I teach a lot of the time, which is like this JM press style, where the elbows track back and out, press, right? It's a lot more like a JM press than anything else, but with a downward position. Where here, it's lengthened bias, right? Because when our forearm is perpendicular to the cable is that point of peak difficulty. And then down here, it's relatively less, just based on like the force vector. Pretty cool. Much the same as how a JM press, right, is most difficult in the bottommost position, and that could be a good thing. But one other day, when I do tricep press downs, I'll take a slightly wider grip and I'll do rolling press downs where come to here, let the elbows slide, press, because your long head of your tricep is biarticular, blah, blah, blah. We're getting some active lengthening through that rolling thing. Guys at Westside used to always like rolling triceps. So I'll have one day of this like JM style and one day of a rolling press down. You know, could do the same thing with dumbbell sculls. One day strict, very static arm position, one day rolling with more weight. I think it's a great training stimulus. Yeah. Wow, those are feeling a lot better already. All right. Quick warm-up set with 25. always take a couple of warm-up sets with anything that's taking my shoulder through like a range of motion that it hasn't been exposed to yet. So, oh. Shh. 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 So one thing Max mentioned is that I should try to be myself a little bit more on the channel rather than just snapping into pure information mode. Which partially I think it's just like, what if people don't like me? And I should care less. So I'm going to try to sneak in more of my opinions that are less popular, whatever it might be. And one you might have heard me guys mention a couple of times. And one of the things that Max told me was that I should try to be myself on the channel a little bit more, maybe sneak in a few more jokes, rather than just kind of snapping into pure information mode. Because a good number of people on the channel seem to like it, right? There's always going to be people out there that don't like me, and that's fine. And I shouldn't concern myself with trying to avoid that, right? So I'll include a couple more of my less bland opinions every now and then. One of them that you guys might have heard me talk about before is my feelings about dip elitism. Dips, sick exercise, major staple in my first 200 bench, 300 bench, 400 bench, 500 bench, 600 bench. Love them. Great exercise. Super cool, super dandy. Dare I say underrated in a lot of powerlifting circles. That being said, you get guys who are like calisthenics elitists who are like, yeah, dips is a much better test of pure strength because look at these guys on the bench press and their arches. They're reduced. Look at that tiny range of motion. You're going to tell me that's a test of upper body strength? I implore you to go look at high-level street lifters. When they do their dips, don't watch their shoulder. Watch the plates. You're going to tell me that's much better on average than most bench presses, right? Like the whole arching thing is also, it's kind of like strength standards online or injury risk online is we have a very hard time wrapping our head around the fact that there's a fucking nearing 10 billion people. And so we see all of something happening. So a 700-pound deadlift seems common when maybe one guy in your local area can do it. And that's probably more indicative of how actually common things are. I think getting that bigger scope of what's out there is great because it calibrates what you're like, you're not going to hold yourself back too much. But at the same time, it creates this idea that under every rock, there's some dude ripping an 800-pound deadlift. And it's just not the case, right? Same thing kind of happens with the bench arches is you'll see like powerlifting meet performances will get 10 views, 10 views, 10 views. All these people are doing regular looking benches. And then the one with a crazy arch goes viral. So people perceive that to be a much greater percentage of power. Like go watch a local meet and count me how many people have such good arches they're doing 3-inch benches. Maybe one or two at each local meet are like pretty small. Not these crazy things you will see online, right? The idea that that's like all of powerlifting, kind of nuts. But that being said, this idea, yeah, range of motion, watch the fucking plates, dude. What the fuck are we talking about? It's a great motion. No knock to the lifters. Lift to the standard that the rules say. They're doing that. But this whole, and like people get better and better at that technique and you're doing the same thing that the bench dudes do. You like dips more? You feel you're better at them? Sick. Don't trash the other one when you're doing the same thing on your lift. You know what I mean? All right, top set time. I'm excited because I'm getting close to the part of the program where I actually get to do like hard top sets because I'm not gonna lie, a little insecure that my training looks a little soft in these videos with like, oh, well, I'm accumulating sub-max straight sets. Get to ball out soon and do some hard training, which, getting psyched up for a hard set is a skill that I really enjoy working on. Very beneficial to my results, blah, blah, blah. But incoming excuse, definitely not gonna quite push my dips to the limit yet. Because I wasn't doing any flat pressing for a good while, my pecs are deconditioned and I could lift a weight that I haven't earned the right to lift recently because of my training history. So I perceive there to be a pretty elevated risk, not a pec tear. I don't think I'm gonna tear my pec with a fucking 1-plate dip, but pec tweaks, bit of a pain, very avoidable. Give myself a little bit of a runway on these, leaving reps in the tank each week and build up to the ability to do an all-out top set, which I really, really like on dips. Back offs if I need them, no back offs if I don't, but it'll probably be, I don't know, 3 more weeks before you see me hitting like an RPE 9 to 10 on these. So we're gonna leave a little in the tank here. I would like 12, 1 plate for 12 is really not good compared to especially some of the dips I was doing in college or when I was pushing for the 600. But I think it would be a good mark up from last week and enough to build that runway to where I don't tweak my pec when I start going ham on these and doing sets I feel good bragging to you guys about. And pause at the top of all reps because I think there's a very legitimate training effect to the pause at the top. That was a good set. All right, on to something that we don't need a runway on. If you know good old sheather training shit, you know we always do our tricep isos religiously. Anytime we press, we do some kind of tricep iso for a reasonable amount of volume to fill up the gap. Usually we can't do any more overhead pressing or any more bench pressing because our chest and our shoulders can't recover, but our triceps could handle a little bit more. If your triceps can't handle a little bit more, I would argue a lot of the time they're under conditioned. You can make arguments about like, oh, well, longer limbed lifters, right? Paris used to say that until he conditioned his triceps to handle more work, conditioned his elbows to more aggressive movement patterns, and now he does as a longer limbed lifter, and people with far longer arms than Paris have the ability to include more. So yes, are there training differentiations between longer limbed lifters? Yes. Is the reason your triceps are smoked after your bench? Maybe because they're slightly under conditioned and actually going and doing a bit more to increase their work capacity might behoove you. Can you do things that are easy on the elbows at first to build tolerance? Yes, you can. But we do our tricep isos on here. Today, I have rolling triceps on the lat pull down because I can do the whole stack on my regular cable machine. We've got a band added. It feels nice. Is it stretch mediated? No, but tricep isos, we go to failure. Are the last couple reps more fatiguing than they are stimulative? Yeah, but the fatigue of a single joint iso exercise is not to be concerned with in the first part. So I'd rather ensure my accuracy with my proximity to failure and get the bit of gains those last reps do. So we're looking to reach a true 10 here, which finally we get to do something fun. Ish. Shh, shh, shh. Ish. 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 Fuck. All right, set one complete, hit my rep target, get to go up into weight next week. Set two, rep target is 20. So as long as I go north of 20 here, we're going up next week. Still gonna try to reach a 9 or a 10 on the RPE here within like reasonable form. And then I will be doing 3 sets of 10 reps on like low rest just to fill in some volume. I might film those, I might not, because I like doing 5 work sets. Instead of 48 hours, I have 72 hours before I press again. So I may as well cook my tries a little bit extra. Anytime I've got a workout where I'm like, I'm not gonna need these muscles for a while longer, I'll do a little bit extra, fuck it. Yeah. I'm on, bitch. I'm on, bitch. Fuck. All right, final set of Powell raises here. 3 areas of physicality for a big strict press: triceps, shoulders, upper back. Making sure we're checking that box of upper back at the end, upper back, rear delts, whatever you want to call it, say it. Shit like face pulls, Y raises, Powell raises. Honestly, regular rear delt flies are great. Regular lateral raises, specifically because they do get traps and they train your rotator cuff a bit. Lou raises are great. Tons of these things, I think, should be included potentially as a warm-up if you have kind of poor scapular function, and then again harder at the end to kind of address that third area of physicality. It's a box a lot of people don't bother to check. We're on our last set here. Again, no reason not to go to RP10. I'm gonna keep my look point slightly upward. I think if I follow with the eyes, you can throw a little bit more rather than contracting through the rear delt to come out of that stretch. So I used to look down, now I look more up. I put my arm down for a bit of a base. Should hit a 9 or a 10 here. No reason not to. You can do these on an incline or on a flat. I kind of vary it with time. I feel like I would be remiss to not mention, of course, our vertical pulling, our horizontal pulling with elbows tucked, with elbows flared, creating those lats to pull into for a strict press, shit like shrugs, all also part of that upper back equation. I was just kind of giving the smaller scale, more overhead specific stuff. Should also be doing that other shit as well. All right, phone is about to die, so you guys don't get to see my super cool back and forth single arm dumbbell preachers to make sure my biceps stay healthy and make it so hopefully one day I don't have the smallest arms of any man to bench 600. Riveting stuff. Even more riveting, we have our super cool colored dumbbells for some Y raises. Right now I've got one day of trap 3 raises where we kind of bring here in the same setup, one arm at a time. One day where I go bilateral. Both are going to be in an externally rotated position. Who gives a shit, right? Sometimes I'll do Y raises as a bodybuilding exercise, which, yeah, sure, they're short and biased, and that's not great. But I like the 2 birds, 1 stone of getting some lateral delts while also getting some like low trap overhead function type work. Well, I'll go palms facing down, and I'll go a bit heavier. Today we're going real light, trying to feel the lower trap a little bit. Pauses at the top, thumbs up. But when I push them as more of a bodybuilding exercise, as like a 2 birds, 1 stone thing, which I have a lot of my lifters do, we're not going to try to pull off the pad necessarily. We're going to keep our head neutral or tucked. Some people who really kind of compensate with their erectors, I'll have them push their forehead into the pad, palms stay down. We pump out reps like this. Great exercise. Not what we're doing today, but really like them. And they're regularly in my rotation if you guys like them. So we're going like here. Thank you for watching my video. If you made it this far, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know. Any changes to this, fuck it. We'll make this the first resuming of the road to 405 overhead press, because it is a stain on my record of road twos that I did start the 405 and then focused on my bench press. So we're coming back to make sure we're going 3 for 3, because I'm starting to take a little pride in that. Shot call in the video title is going to happen. So we're getting after it.